you in search of a high-profile international job? The African Union is in search of a new leadership at its commission headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as candidates have been presenting their manifesto to replace outgoing chairlady Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. What has it been to be the chairlady of the African Union Commission? The outgoing commission chairlady exclusively talks to me in a moment.
We condemned that. We condemned the Chibok. Of course, we don't get the same attention as Michelle Obama, but we do a lot more in Africa than Michelle Obama.
Silent diplomacy you are talking about.
It's not silent diplomacy. How much do you publish what we do in the AU yourself?
Why African leaders can deny there is no crisis at the Commission presidency, African leaders, those of the Central Africa Economic Community, have overtly accepted their economies are in jeopardy if something is not accurately and urgently done to balance the books. And there was a warning roughly 1 year ago on this program when I received the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, who explained to me what will be the economic fortunes of the Central Africa Economic Zone if thrifty spending was not respected. In a moment, Christine Lagarde.
The terms of the economic exchanges in the coming 20 years, I cannot predict. Nobody can predict, but you can set high goals.
And why economic turmoil plus humanitarian and political crisis are making the future bleak, there is some glimmer of hope coming from the continent. And that glimmer of hope is provided, among others, by one of Africa's financial gurus, the founding president of the Tony Elumelu Foundation and the chairperson of the United Bank for Africa. It is time, around this time, this year, that applications for the Tony Elumelu Foundation to receive at least 3 million CFA francs to start your startup, that it has been opened. And from the headquarters of the United Bank for Africa, based in Ikoyi Street, along one of the most expensive areas in Africa and in Lagos, in Nigeria in particular, they call it Victoria Islands. Tony Elumelu joined us from there.
Personally, my family and I, we, through the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we support entrepreneurs across Africa. You must have heard about the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program. We support 1,000 Africans every year. We endowed the foundation $100 million to support our young entrepreneurs.
Tonight, we start with the new leadership tussle at the African Union Commission presidency. Outgoing Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma has refused to seek another mandate. So there are so many candidates vying to become the next chairperson or chairlady of the African Union Commission. For the very first time in the history of organization, they have been meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as very soon a new commission chairperson or chairlady will be chosen. And this time around, all the candidates had to participate in a televised debate so that the public can assess their various programs. So what has been live for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the outgoing commission chairlady at the African Union Commission? She was the former South African Minister for Foreign Affairs and an ex-wife to South Africa's President Jacob Zuma. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, welcome to Globe Watch.
Thank you.
Just how far does the African Union consider gender equality today as a major priority?
The African Union considers gender equality as an imperative for Africa's development because women are half the talent on the continent, more than half the talent. So anyone who ignores more than half of its talent will not grow to the full potential. So it's very important. It's also important because it's the women's rights to be treated equally. But more so also because women tend to look after their families, and so if you have a healthy, skilled woman, the next generation will be healthier and will be more educated.
Most young African girls will be looking on people like you and others across the continent, that each time there is a problem affecting the girl child in Africa, you should be the first to talk. And let me take you to the Chibok schoolgirls in Nigeria, where when they were kidnapped plus 2 years ago, we had condemnations from the White House. Michelle Obama led the campaign, and not Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and not African first ladies. And that is why there is so much disillusion in some of the work you do. What happened?
Well, I don't know about that. We condemned, in fact, we didn't even start with the Chibok girls. If you remember, before the Chibok girls, there were boys who were kidnapped just around the time the Nigerians were celebrating their centenary. We condemned that. We condemned the Chibok. Of course, we don't get the same attention as Michelle Obama, but we do a lot more in Africa than Michelle Obama.
Silent diplomacy you are talking about.
It's not silent diplomacy. How much do you publish what we do in the AU yourself?
As you know, you are in a leadership crisis. For close a year now, you're unable to get a new chairperson of the African Union.
I don't
Commission.
elect chairpersons as the heads of state. I don't elect chairpersons. They are elected by heads of state. I'm not in a crisis. The AU is not in a crisis. What happened was there were applicants for the position of the chair. The heads of state didn't think they were suitable, and they didn't elect them.
Which means we lack human resources to manage our own continental association.
We don't lack human resources. Maybe not enough people had put their names for election.
What are some of the opportunities that African people in general have?
First of all, it's found in our people, our own people. We have a big population. We have a young population. We've seen our young people, how they are keen to innovate. Some of the top innovations in the world come from this continent. And so our young people are not looking at themselves as inferior. They are looking at themselves as equal, and they are learning, they are innovating. We have even young people who have a continent named after him. We have the M-Pesa, which is now very widely used. Where did it come from? From African young people. So that's where our first pride is, and that's our most precious resource.
You saw the outcome of the US elections. You were at the Beijing conference in 1995, in which Hillary Clinton declared that women's rights are human rights. Were you disappointed with the outcome of the US elections? And there is speculation that you will be running for the South African presidency. Does that change your mind in any form?
I'm not American, so the Americans must answer what happened in America. And Africa will do what it's doing. We are the first organization to have a woman at the helm of a continental organization. We are the first in Africa. The EU hasn't had a woman at the helm. The American organization hasn't had a woman at the helm. So why can't you use Africa's good examples instead of wanting us to answer for America's failure to elect a woman?
The chair lady of the African Union Commission, former South African Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, thank you very much indeed for being guest on Globe Watch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Leaders of the CEMAC zone, which involves 6 countries in the Central African sub-region, overtly accepted last December 23 in Yaoundé that their economies are in bad shape and that if thrifty spending is not taken into consideration, then there will be an outright return to structural adjustment programs from the International Monetary Fund. One clear message from that gathering in Yaoundé was that there will be no devaluation of the CFA franc, and the reason was simple. This is a currency used in 14 countries, and so the economies of the other zone are in good shape, just those in the Central African sub-region and in a bad position. Well, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, was guest on this program roughly 1 year ago today, and she told me that if Central Africa economic fortunes were not well managed, then we will be heading into a jeopardy.
What a bright color, beautiful.
The managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, welcome to GlobeWatch.
Thank you.
What do you make of the Cameroonian economy, especially with budgetary chaos estimated at some 3,811 billion CFA francs?
You know, I would observe that the Cameroon economy is facing a double shock. Security shock, which has humanitarian aspects, but also fiscal consequences, first, and second, a very brutal and probably, unfortunately, sustainable oil shock because of the much lower prices, which have declined by about 70% in the last 18 months. And in spite of those circumstances, because Cameroon has a diversified portfolio of exports and is a quite resilient economy, the Cameroon economy has been able to deliver 6%, nearly 6% growth in 2015, and we forecast it to grow again at close to 6% in 2016. So it's not bad at all compared with the sub-region average growth, which is around 2.5%.
For some years now, Cameroon has embarked on the program budget, and in the middle of that budget, the government introduced a special program of roughly 925 billion CFA francs. Do you think that we are on the right track of the program budget?
Our recommendation to Cameroon, as well as to other countries of the sub-region, is to certainly continue to spend on projects, but to do so in a much more selective way than it did in the past. When you have less resources, you are much more picky about which project you're going to invest those scarce resources into. So that's recommendation number one. Number two, you have to look at alternative sources of financing. Not everything can be financed on budgetary funding. Alternative sources have to be looked at by way of reasonable borrowing at concessional terms, preferably, by way of syndicated loans that are also at good, decent terms, by way of participation of the private sector, which has to be called upon in order to participate in the equipment of the country. So I think that's where Cameroon is at the moment. It has to continue to invest. It has some means to do it, but not as much as it did in the past. So it has to be more selective, and it has to really select those projects on the basis of the added value for the economy and the multiplying effect that it will have.
We are facing a severe security threat from Boko Haram amidst falling oil prices, and this nation has embarked on the 2035 vision. Is it realistic under the current economic circumstances?
You know, it's very difficult to predict what will happen in 2035, but equally it's very important to have a goal and an ambition. So to set a goal high and to try to reach it is commendable. What will happen to the price of oil? Forecast is probably not particularly bright for the near future or for the medium term. But the terms of the economic exchanges in the coming 20 years, I cannot predict. Nobody can predict. But you can set high goals.
Probably our last question. The CEMAC zone growth rate fell from about 4% to about 2.2%. And there are some rumors that some countries want to leave the CFA franc. Are we heading towards an economic disintegration?
I would certainly hope not. I think the monetary zone has been extremely helpful to keep price stability. If you have an inflation which is at around 2.5% at the moment in the sub-region, it's actually really beneficial, particularly for the people that are most in need. High inflation, price instability, a monetary policy that is at odds with the rest of the zone would certainly not help in the context of those big exogenous shocks that are hurting the zone at the moment. 2 is bad enough. You don't want to add a third one.
Mrs. Lagarde, how will you like to be remembered when you are leaving the IMF, finally?
I'm not about to leave the IMF finally. Thank you.
Okay. Christine Lagarde, the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, thank you very much for being us on Globe Watch. One of Africa's top financial gurus is providing opportunities at a time when the banking sector on the continent is very, very scary in investing in startups. I'm talking about the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which has launched its 3rd edition of the Young African Entrepreneurship Program, where they can apply online to receive training from the Tony Elumelu Foundation to create the next Tony Elumelu's Aliko Dangote and Isabel Dansantos of Africa. So, how is that being done? The application is online, and for the first part, which lasts at least 12 weeks, you will receive at least 3 million CFA francs. That is roughly $5,000. And to talk about the brain behind the idea, we will be meeting the founding president of the Tony Elumelu Foundation and the president of the United Bank for Africa in this interview conducted at the bank's headquarters. Tony Elumelu, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, Charles.
You employed over 11 million people on the continent, operating in more than 19 African countries. What are your social responsibilities to the communities?
We have over 20,000 African young men and women in employment, and we support small and medium-scale enterprises across Africa. We help to facilitate payments across Africa, and we also help to support and trade finance in Africa. In the area of social responsibility, we do it in 2 parts. First, through the UBA Foundation, and UBA Foundation, they support education, support entrepreneurship. But personally, my family and I, through the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we support entrepreneurs across Africa. You must have heard about the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program. We support 1,000 Africans every year. We endowed the foundation $100 million to support our young entrepreneurs so that they can play their own role in developing Africa. And the good thing, you have some people from Cameroon who are on the program.
Sure. Let me just ask a question about Cameroon. You were in Cameroon recently. You talk about the investment forum which was organized by the administration. What is your particular connection with the Cameroonian economy?
No, Cameroon to me is like second home in terms of business. Cameroon is a very hospitable investment destination. And as I said when I was in Cameroon 2 months ago, private capital goes to where it is welcomed. And our private capital is in Cameroon because the people and government of Cameroon have been most receptive. We do good business in Cameroon.
After you spoke in Yaoundé, and they said, everybody was like, well, how do I reach Tony Elumelu? How do I even touch him, discuss with him? What message of inspiration do you have for them?
A couple of messages. First is Tony Elumelu is reachable. They should go on the Tony Elumelu Foundation website And they should also, my Twitter handle is Tony O. Elumelu, and they feel free. I have a Facebook also, Tony Elumelu. So they feel very free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. But beyond that, the message of hope is that if people like me can get to where I am today, they can even surpass our achievements. And indeed, we are looking up to the next generation of African leaders, people who will take over from us and take Africa to the next height. And that is why my foundation's $100 million entrepreneurship program is all geared to helping Africans, young Africans who have ideas, to empower them and help them have their ideas, work on their ideas, materialize their ideas, and in hope that their ideas will help us create the huge employment that we need on our continent. So with hard work, resilience, discipline, and thinking long term, and making sacrifices, you or they will surpass what we have achieved. It is doable.
Most African countries, especially young people, do not have security when it comes to getting loan to start their businesses. Does UBA promise them that it can give them cash without collateral security for them to start their businesses, and after that they are going to return the money? Is that a specific element for UBA?
You need to know how banking operates, commercial banking.
Okay.
Commercial banking is about credit and debit. You take money from investors, your life savings, you give it to a bank because you trust a bank. And you say, this bank, keep this savings for me, and let the savings work for me, pay me interest on it. So the bank has taken from you. So the bank is owing you. Now the bank on its own, because they have money, and because they have to help the economy grow, they have to give out this money to people who need money. So the bank plays an intermediation role from people who have, they take, and to people who need, they give. If you take from people who have, and in giving, you don't give it in a prudent fashion. When people who have, or who have given you, their life savings come to you to get their money, they will not get their money again. So what happens? The bank goes under, and the depositors suffer. So it's always very good for a bank to be prudent in lending.
Okay.
However, as an African, as somebody who was born and bred in Africa, and who has managed to make some economic progress in Africa, I have decided as a person to set aside a percentage of some amount from what I have.
Absolutely.
And that's why the sum of $100 million is a lot of money. And say every year,
it's too much money even for African economies.
As every year, we support 1,000 Africans who have business ideas, no collateral, nothing, just ideas. I don't know you, I don't know you, and we'll give you money to start your business.
Okay.
That is economic empowerment. That we do. So it's different from banking, and bankers make banking decisions. I'm no longer a banker.
Okay.
I leave them to make the decision.
Okay, Mr. Tony Elumelu, we want to thank you very much for talking to us from the UBA headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed once more.
Thank you, and bon voyage.
Merci. Well, I don't know what your New Year resolution is, but at least I know that of the new Secretary General of the United Nations Organization. The former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Antonio Guterres, has spent at least a week in office now as the new Secretary General of the United Nations with one clear message for the entire community. That is peace first and peace last.
On my first day as Secretary General of the United Nations, one question weighs heavily on my heart. How can we help the millions of people caught up in conflict, suffering massively in wars with no end in sight? Civilians are pounded with deadly force. Women, children and men are killed and injured, forced from their homes, dispossessed and destitute. And even hospitals and aid convoys are targeted. No one wins these wars. Everyone loses. From solidarity and compassion in our daily lives, to dialogue and respect across political divides, from ceasefires on the battlefield to compromise at the negotiating table to reach political solutions. Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us. And I appeal to you all to join me in committing to peace today and every day. Let us make 2017 a year for peace. Thank you.
And that is the package we had for you today on Globe Watch. If you missed it today, you can follow us on our website at www.crtv.cm. You can equally follow me on Facebook at Charles Ebune and on Twitter at Charles Ebune6. Remember, this is Globe Watch. This is Charles Ebune, and this is the Cameroon Radio Television. On this channel and on this program in particular, undisputable information is a priority. And the reason is simple. When great people talk, they talk to